Gotcha.
And I got a question about your impact too, Pierre. Like, I knew that you from Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
You went to school in New Orleans. You graduated. Then you went back to Chicago.
Man,
Talk about that experience for me. Like being around a different culture, different environment, then going back to where you were from, and talk about that experience and how that pushed you to kind of be where you at right now.
Sure. Well, it didn't quite happen that way, but I will say that, and I'll explain why I say quite not happen that way. But my 4 years, man, shout out to New Orleans, man. This is my second home. That's what I want to say.
Big ups to New Orleans.
Big ups to New Orleans, man. Like that's the best 4 years of my life, hands down. Right, it will always be my second home. So that was one of the most important decisions that I've ever made in my life. To get down here, I learned how to be a man.
Mm-hmm.
I learned how to be responsible,
Mm-hmm.
and I learned how to be how to take charge of my destiny here in New Orleans. So that was just an experience that for my life I cannot put a price on it. It's the most important decision I ever made to come down to New Orleans and be at Xavier. Right, Xavier for me was everything. I didn't go right back to Chicago. What happened was that me and Max ended up having to figure out how to get past the MCAT. You know, because once we left Xavier, we literally bombed the MCAT. Like, that's and that's what we tell kids now. It's not, intelligence doesn't keep Black kids from these high levels of success. It's test taking.
Or preparation.
Test taking, period. And it is not by happenstance, it is by design, right? Because these standardized tests are not testing knowledge. They're testing ability to take a test and to decipher jargon that you're not accustomed to deciphering. Right. And, once we got to that hurdle, we realized we weren't prepared and we had to figure it out, and and that's the problem. These kids go to, some of these universities or what have you, and they don't do well. They're diverted to other things like change your major, change your outlook, change this, change that, where Xavier's like, look, it's a problem, but we can get past it. Like, here's another avenue, right? So we ended up going to a program called MetaPrep in Southern Illinois, and that's Central Illinois. I mean, that's Southern Illinois, really, rather. So from there, we finished, and then for me, I ended up going to medical school in Central Illinois, which is not Chicago. So gotcha. Illinois it looks like this.
It's like Louisiana.
It's right. It's Chicago, and then the rest of the state. Okay,
that sounds familiar.
So right. So Chicago is nothing like the rest of the state of Illinois. Yeah. The rest of the state of Illinois is more like the South, if you will, where it's racist. Really? It's segregated, absolutely.
I've been through that one time. Don't even
very
go
much
back.
So realize, and I go in super deep. Like the Ku Klux Klan was like it was established Southern Illinois and Indiana. Like that's where it's from. Like if you look at the roots of the Ku Klux Klan, that's where it's from. So that's where I was in school. So the very my first year of residency, there was a noose on the Capitol. There was a noose hung on the Capitol building, right? So we talking about the capital of my state, and there's a noose hanging from the building.
True.
And I'm in residency there, and I'm expected to, as the only the first black male resident of that program, to get a fair shake. So there's no way. Right. It's absolutely no way. So the book talks about that too. It's just going from Xavier, where it's a community of helping, of caring, of nurturing, going to a place where it was, we don't really want you to make it, and we're not gonna give you any tools to make it. So for me, I guess, not to go around your question forever, but it's just like that for me. That experience even pushed me more to write this book to make people realize, man, racism is real. And when these kids get to the higher you go, the less we get, right? The higher we get, the less of us we see. You know, like you said, like we say all the time, like we go in the hospitals, there nobody look like us. You know, isn't nobody. And some of the black folks that looked at it like, yeah, you got black people that. No. You know what I mean? It's a difference. It's a difference. We made different. We made real different. You know, so you know, it was an eye opener for me, but it's an experience that I wouldn't change. Like I wouldn't change my path of being in New Orleans, of being in Central Illinois, whatever, because it opened my eyes up to what the world really is and what needs to be done. Because for me, I wouldn't have the drive to make the differences and the changes that I want to make if I hadn't experienced the racism, the bigotry, and the things that I had to experience to get to the point that I want to get to.
Gotcha. Well, we got some great insight from the book from these brothers, so we're going to take another